5-minute warning. Starting about 5 minutes, guys. Thank you.
Dear Seattle, we come from different places. Some of us were born right here. Some of us are adopted sons and daughters. But we all are Sounders. And we believe in this club.
What a moment for Seattle!
We believe in success, in what you stand for, in what you've built, and in what's to come. The Sounders simply are Seattle, a franchise etched in history, in our community, in our hearts. love is ours. Mine, yours, all of ours. Always, Seattle.
Welcome in, guys. Thanks for being here today on short notice. My name is Alex Caulfield, for those of you that don't know me, as I adjust my mic here. I work in Sounders FC Communications, and here today to follow up on the news that was announced earlier. Just a quick run of show for you guys. We're going to flip it over to Sounders FC owner Adrain Hanauer here in a moment for his opening remarks. We want to get to all your media questions here today. We are live streaming this, so even though we know all of you, as we go around the room during the Q&A, if you could introduce yourself, that would be helpful for the folks not here in Seattle, not here in the room. At this time, I think we'll turn it over to Adrian for his opening remarks and then get around to your questions.
Good, thank you, Alex. And thank you again for being here short notice, as Alex mentioned. If you would indulge me, I do have some somewhat extensive opening remarks because this is a big day for our club, big day for the Sounders family. It is not completely sweet. There is this is a little bit of a bittersweet announcement for us, and I guess I'll start with the bitter portion, which is that 12 years ago, almost to the day, I met Joe Roth for the first time at the All-Star game in Denver, Colorado, and we hit it off immediately. Joe wanted to bring a soccer franchise, an MLS franchise, to the Northwest. Chose Seattle, and I was lucky enough to be his partner in that endeavor. Obviously, Paul Allen, the Vulcan Sports Group, got involved, Drew Carey, and we were able to launch the franchise in 2009 and have a lot of success over that first 10 years. And so, I guess the first thing I wanted to do was just sort of recognize and talk a bit about Joe Roth and his legacy. Joe was the ultimate competitor. Joe wanted to win as much as anybody I know. He was driven, aggressive, competitive, smart. He understood that winning on Saturdays was the key, but we were also in show business, so how we win is important. I've learned a ton of lessons from Joe along the way. For me, some of the highlights, the things I think back on are for sure that opening night in March of 2009, being able to stand there together and say, look, man, we had a lot of help from a lot of people, but this is a pretty amazing moment in this sports history, and hopefully this is the first step, but this is a big transformation for our sport, and we like to believe that the Sounders fan base, the Sounders family, has been one of those catalysts for continuing to grow the sport in North America. The trophies along the way, the fact that this team has had the best record, the most consistent winning record of any team over the 10 years, and then ultimately, winning that MLS Cup in 2016, being up on the stage with him and seeing him jumping around like a little boy was something that I'll never forget. And so I was so happy to be able to share that with Joe. I consider Joe a friend, a mentor, somebody who I look forward to continuing a strong relationship with. Joe is for sure still engaged, still sending me emails at halftime of every game with his comments and thoughts. Calling me after every game, and in a lot of ways things haven't changed, but But, in fact, Joe has exited the club as an owner. Again, I'm just super appreciative of everything he did for this club and this fan base. I guess the second part of this story is that, I and the existing group of owners believe as much in the next 10 years of this franchise and of our league as we did in the first. We are all in on the growth in this sport, in this community. This is where we live. This is where we, do our business. These are our people. The Sounders fan base, the Sounders family is something that is near and dear to our hearts, and we wanted to show that. And so this existing ownership group has, if you will, doubled down on their investment in the Sounders. That includes an entity that I've had for a while that is the majority of mine, but my mother is involved. And another friend named Paul Berry, who has been in the shadows quite a bit, but Paul has been involved with the Sounders since 2002, the USL days when I got involved. He's been a fantastic friend, big supporter. Seemed like a good opportunity, and I've mentioned him in the past, but a good opportunity to publicly acknowledge Paul and his partnership over the years. Drew Carey increased his position in the club. Again, Drew doesn't live in Seattle, but you wouldn't necessarily know it. He loves this community, loves the fans, loves the team, and honestly, there could not be a better partner that I've had over these years than Drew Carey. Unbelievably supportive, positive. As many of you know, he's really funny, and after a loss, I can take it a little bit seriously and be miserable for long periods of time. And when Drew's around, he can always create a little levity, and he's really, honestly, helped my mental being at times. So I'm super appreciative of Drew. And then, obviously, originally, Paul Allen, his sister Jody now carrying the mantle for Vulcan Sports and Entertainment. Their whole group has continued to be super supportive. They're led by a new CEO, a guy named Chris McGowan, who has been a great partner. He's only been in the role for a number of months, but that relationship has gotten really strong. Chuck Arnold, who's the president over at the Seahawks, a bunch of the people who helped us launch this franchise back in 2009. I have to mention Gary Wright, who's in the room, who played a massive role in this club's formation and still plays a role as a bit of a patriarch of the franchise, and makes sure that we're heading in the right direction. And finally, I guess the exciting and new part of our announcement today. This has been quite a journey, but going back about 15 months ago, I got a call from Joe Roth, and he said, it might be time for me to exit. No rush, no panic, no urgency, and you decide how the process should go, but it is something that I'm considering, and maybe you can start making some phone calls. Almost to the day, I got an email introduction to Terry Myerson through John Stanton, majority owner of the Mariners, and Terry sent an email saying, "Hey, I was just left Microsoft and was wondering if there was some way to get involved with the Sounders." I called him maybe 5 minutes later. It might have been a couple of days later, but I called him shortly thereafter, and we had a couple of great conversations on the back deck of my house, just talking about philosophy, community, team, a little bit about process. At the same time, there were other interested groups. There were interested groups from outside of our community, and Terry was intent on keeping the Sounders, almost exclusively locally owned. I felt the same way, and Joe felt the same way as well. There were lots of different paths. This is an extremely coveted organization, and one that people want to be associated with and part of, and we were focused on keeping it local. So Terry said, "Leave it with me. I'm going to put a group together, and I'll be back at you." And we continued to communicate over time, but he quickly put together this rock star, well, literally and figuratively, group of owners, and I had known several of the groups over time, and met some new ones, and I guess it was humbling to know how much passion there was, how much connection there was to the club that we all have built together. People were enthusiastic for all the right reasons. This was not a financial investment. This was about community, team, culture, diversity, inclusiveness, and winning. It's hard to have a conversation with Russell Wilson that doesn't, where winning doesn't come up. So Terry, put several dinners together, and was able to hold this group together for what turned out to be a quite an extensive process. I was joking with Art Teal on the way in here that this has really been going on for 15 months or so, and credit and appreciation to all those who over time were in the know about this process going on, and it not necessarily leaking out there in dribs and drabs. Credit to the GeekWire gang for sleuthing up an SEC filing not long ago, but that was about the extent of the leaks. One other interesting incident at a bar a couple of weeks ago with Drew Carey mentioning potential new owners, but somehow the crack PR team did a great job of making sure that didn't become a story either. So I'm not gonna go into the bios of everyone involved, but I do just want to touch on the new partners in this enterprise, because I am so excited about the people involved. Again, starting with Ciara and Russ, they are amazing. They are such a positive, inspirational team. I know a lot of you have had interactions with them, but the sincerity in which they love this community is really amazing, and we're really lucky to have them here. I know that they're super enthusiastic to engage, figure out how they can help grow the sport, but just make it more accessible, inclusive, and we are so excited to have them involved. You know, Ben and Trisha Haggerty, the Macklemores, again, huge sports fans, huge profile globally. I had met Macklemore several times at games over the years. Did not realize how big of a fan he is. Obviously, huge fan of sports overall, but they've been highly engaged as well to begin with. You know, a bunch of the Microsoft crew that Terry obviously had close contacts with. You know, to have Satya Nanu, Nadella, and Amy Hood and Max Kleinman, those families involved, the Belfiores, you know, that is a tremendous statement to the profile of the Sounders, and again, how much they care about keeping this organization locally rooted, and their commitment to community. The Chu family, Christine and she, have been super supportive in this process. Christine may be the biggest Sounders fan out there. Often asks me questions that I don't have answers for. She's keeping me on my toes, and I'm having to do my homework. So they've been great to get involved. Soma and Akila Soma Sagar, again, quiet, supportive, in the community for a long time, and again, super connected. Lots of contacts and interesting ideas about how we evolve our fan base and how we dig even deeper roots in this community. My old buddy David Nathanson, who has an extensive background at the Fox Sports Properties and is on the board of FanDuel, which comes at an interesting time in the evolution of sports betting in this country, and being able to you know, pick his brain on media rights and other revenue opportunities and exposure opportunities. Old friends, the McAndrews, Brian and Elise. New friends, the Agneys, Mark and Tomoko. I think I got them all, but again, back to the beginning, this would not have happened without the amazing effort of Terry Meyerson, who again held this group together for a bit of a roller coaster ride at times, and ultimately this group was committed to the vision of the Sounders. Many of you have heard this before, to create moments, enrich lives, and unify through soccer. And that is what makes me so excited about what the future holds, is this group is absolutely committed to the Sounders fan base, what it means, what it has meant for the first 10 years, and what it means beyond. You're stuck with me today, but we have an event planned for August 19th. I will decide, Alex will decide how much of the detail we will be releasing today, but we have a fantastic community event scheduled. I will be in the background, and I want to introduce our new partners at that event, and let them do the talking, and let them talk about why they decided to get involved. But anyway, thank you for indulging me. I really did just want to sort of recognize this group. I hope I didn't forget anyone. If I did, I'm sure I will hear. Alex, do you think I forgot anyone?
We're going to check.
Okay.
I think you're okay.
If I did, I'll get them the next go around. So, thank you.
While we get the mics ready here to go around the room, we've got Riley and Brian here from our staff. They're going to be on each side of the room, so if you have a question, love to see your hands. We'll make sure we get the mics over to you. While we're getting set up, as Adrian mentioned, our staff will issue more information in the form of an advisory on the August 19th event, either later today or tomorrow. And you can see us after today's press conference for more details on that regarding the new partners and everything we're doing next week. At this time, we'd love to turn over to you guys. I think I see Chris and Chris here. So, yeah, Brian, if you can just pass the mic. Either one's works.
Adrian, Chris Francis from Cairo 7 News. I'm curious how much this change, probably not driven by, but affects the fact that there's a new cross-section between technology and sports and how we consume media. And I mean, you hear a lot of Microsoft names on the list there. I'm just curious what that looks like going forward for this team. I'm sure you've thought about it.
Yeah, I would say that in terms of who got involved and their reasons, I will let them speak for themselves, but nothing I heard indicated that it was that sort of intersection, that it was anything beyond community and supporting the Sounders and wanting to be part of this family. That said, they may not know it yet, but I intend to tap into every bit of knowledge that that we can organizationally to help us think through what the next 10 years looks like, because it is a changing landscape. I mean, media consumption, sports betting. How sponsors look to measure results and success, how fans are engaging in game, different demographics within the fan base. So for sure, we will tap that knowledge.
Chris.
Hi, Adrian. Chris Daniels from King 5. You mentioned a lot off the top there about Drew Carey increasing his stake. Can you get more into the numbers here about just how much this new group will own with the franchise, what Drew will own, and what this new infusion of money means for the franchise at large?
Yeah. So we're not going to go into exact numbers, but I will share sort of a range and sort of general idea. So I think publicly we talked about the fact that Joe owned 32.5%. I believe we'd even talked about Drew owning 7.5% and me owning, or my entity owning 35%. I have increased my stake. Drew has increased his stake, not insignificantly, and the rest of the ownership group has taken out the rest of it. So we're not going to get into specifics, but this new ownership group owns a significant portion, but I was the majority owner at 35%. That's the measurement within our league, and have increased that stake.
Go down here to Tim Booth.
Hi, Adrian. Tim Booth from the AP. You kind of touched on it there for a second, but the 11 families that are coming in, are they all equal share owners of making up that percentage that they took up from Joe? And then second to that, Terry wrote a fairly extensive LinkedIn post about kind of detailing the process, and he mentioned in there about a California equity group sort of talking to Joe and looking into the franchise. Was there a concern at any point in the process of a group outside of the Seattle area coming in and doing something other than keeping the team here for the long term?
So the answer to the first question is there are different levels of ownership within the group, and the answer to the second is really only the only concern Joe had with an incoming group was that it was in lockstep with what our philosophy and vision had been up until now. And the way we wanted to run the club. So, and wanting local, preferring local. But there weren't any, concerns of, nefarious ulterior motives or anything. It was just, wanting to stay true to what we had done and staying local.
Michelle?
Michelle Mendoza, Salem radio broadcast and Sports Timeout. Any talk about how this is going to change the franchise going forward, and any changes that the fans might see?
This is day one. I would, one thing I didn't mention before, I'm excited that we're putting an executive committee together that includes some of these owners and a broader group to begin to explore how we can take advantage of this new group. That sounds wrong. Exploit? No. How we can leverage their knowledge and make them part of decision making going forward. I know they're excited about that, but nothing specific starting from today.
Matt?
Matt Pence from The Athletic. Just kind of building off of that, do you expect this to move the needle drastically in terms of the club's spending power or its approach to investment, particularly in the roster?
Again, I will, just to go back to Michelle, right, to sort of put one specific detail on, look, this does, within our ownership group now, our Twitter followers just went up like 100-fold or 200-fold, I don't know. But the ability to get our message out and broaden the base of fans and engagement is something that we will for sure look to take advantage of where possible. Matt, again, we're early days. One thing that we've always talked about is running a responsible and sustainable soccer club, and we want to do that. That includes trying to find ways to maximize revenue always and provide as many resources as possible to the club to give ourselves the best chance of winning a championship every single year. We feel very good about the 10 years of the sample size of 10 years and that track record, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to get better every single opportunity we have while staying within the bounds of running a rational and sustainable business.
Go over to Nico and then Michelle.
Nico Moreno, Puzo Sports Network, and Sounder at Heart. Adrian right here. Yeah, not sure. How much does this add on to potential money for new signings and bigger acquisitions in a soccer aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, just to Matt's point, this is day one. We will continue to run the franchise the same way we have, which is to continue to try to generate more and more revenue, control our costs, and put as many resources as possible into the soccer team. But I like our last 10 years. I'll take our standings and trophy count. Well, it's the most in American soccer. So we're happy with that, but of course we want more.
Michelle?
Michelle Edka, Q13 News. Adrian, you've been with this club for so long now. You've seen it through ups and downs, all sorts of different transitions. For you personally, what does it mean to you to have not one, but 11 families joining on that share your passion, everything this club means to you both on and off the pitch?
Well, I joked with Brian Schmetzer that I was going to give his cell phone number to 11 new families now. So it wouldn't just be Joe and I that he heard from it at halftime or before every game to tell him what the starting lineup should be. I look, again, it's a little bit bittersweet. Joe's been such a fantastic partner. I love him. I love his passion. But I am excited about this new generation of ownership, commitment, involvement, passion. Again, diversity of ideas. Again, this group hasn't been officially owners more than 2 weeks, and it's already led to interesting conversations with potential partners in the community, and so I am super excited about that. To have this commitment, it really has become it's a family. This is a family club. We talk about it a lot. We like to think of ourselves as one giant Sounders family, and that was the other thing that was really cool as we talked with these groups. Almost all of them have kids that are either playing now or played growing up. They're all fans. They're all passionate. They all they want to engage in ways to just help the club be more successful. So, and sort of the bigger picture, it is kind of astonishing to me, Michelle, thinking back to 2000, at least late 2001, when I got involved, and 2,500 people at Memorial Stadium, and then moving to CenturyLink or Seahawks Stadium at the time, and having 4,000 people, maybe 4,500 on a good night, and to now have the likes of Sierra and Russell and Macklemore and Satya and Amy, involved, definitely makes me very proud.
Go to our Art and then Jada.
Art Teal, Sports Press Northwest. Adrian, the last time the town has seen an ownership group add a whole lot of minority owners was the Sonics under Howard Schultz. And so I'm wondering what kind of conditions or structure you've created here to avoid descent into bewilderment, betrayal, and despair.
Yeah, it's a great question, Art. Look, the way this is structured, I am the majority owner and retain control. That was important to me. It was also important to the league. The leagues don't like multiple decision makers, and so thankfully this group of owners trust me. I hope they retain that trust in me. I know in my heart that all I care about is what is good for Sounders FC and the club, the fans, and the community. And I think as long as I'm true to that, we're good. But ultimately, I will want to involve them and have them feel like partners, and they can add and contribute, but ultimately, I'm going to be able to make the call on what I think is right for the club.
Jada?
Jada Evans with the Seattle Times.
Hi, Jada.
Also to the ownerships, though, that there's a lot of diversity. Was that intentional, or how did that come about?
Yeah, it was intentional, and something we're really proud of. It reflects our culture. It reflects our values. And again, I've said this before. Selfishly, I like lots of different perspectives, people who come from all different walks of life and experiences, and so I'm thrilled about the diversity in the ownership group.
Jackson, and then we'll stay in the center here with Ari and Mickey as well.
Jackson Feltz, Sports Radio 950 KJR. Adrian, we've used the term family a lot, and is the proverbial father of the organization who's been here since day one. Looking at the view from 35,000 feet, right? From everything that's happened in the last few weeks, from Brad Smith to the flag situation to signing a couple new players and now this, is this the busiest few weeks you've had as the owner of this club? And secondly, what's next?
Yeah, it may be, Jackson. It has been, and again, I have to give credit. A lot of the Sounders staff here been busting their butts round the clock on this issue, but to your point on this announcement, but there's a lot of other stuff going on around us. And so it has been busy, but it's exciting, lots of action. I think none of us would have it any other way. Perhaps the only other way we'd have it is, sitting here with 9 points from our last 3 home games instead of 1 point. But we get this announcement next Monday behind us and get back to business and hopefully collecting points and chasing down LAFC.
Ari
Lilienwall, MLSsoccer.com. When did the connection with Russell and Ciara first come about, and what have they expressed to you about why this is a good opportunity for them and what they can contribute?
Yeah, so I had come across Russell a few times, during his early years with the Seahawks, and about 3 years ago, I think it was a Copa America game. We ended up chatting for a while. Ciara was there as well. I think we were both stalking Lionel Messi. Actually, Lionel Messi was probably stalking Russell. I was stalking Lionel Messi. And had a great conversation about community, and he was very enthusiastic about the Sounders, asked a lot of questions. And then, it wasn't until this 16 months ago period when Terry connected with Russell and got he and Ciara interested again. And then, again, Russ Ciara, super generous, hosted a number of us for dinner to talk about what they wanted out of this, which was to be able to affect community. Kids, diversity, inclusion, those were the things that they were keying in on. Again, investment, return on it, never in the conversation. And again, with Russ winning, being able to, wander into the locker room and pump up the boys and obviously I'm not sure there's a mentally stronger and more positive athlete on the planet. If there is, I haven't met that person. But to have his positivity around the club will be fantastic. And again, I'll leave it to them to sort of talk through more of what motivated them. But at least that's what I observed.
Mickey Turner, The Athletic and Center at Heart. Adrian, going back to the organizational structure, has this new ownership group, did they buy into your existing group? Have they formed a new group on their own, or are they just separate individuals who own a piece of the team? And secondly, given the number of Microsoft owners now, are you hopeful to maybe re-engage that relationship with Microsoft on a sponsorship level?
Right. So the answer to the first question, again, I don't think I'm going off the off base here because Taylor and his crack team have already found the SEC filing for an entity called Seattle Football that contains this group. Sorry, Mickey. Microsoft. We would love to have Microsoft engaged and a partner of Sounders FC, but the conversations have been completely unrelated, and we will our partnership team will continue to hammer the phones and call the right people in every company in this community to build strong partnerships. Yeah.
Go over to Jeremiah and then the two in the back row there.
Jeremiah O'Shan, Sounder at Heart. What was the conversations with Joe like during this process? Did you ever, I know it took 15 months. It sounded like he was kind of letting you drive the bus, so to speak, but was there ever a sense of we need to move this along, or was there ever a sense of he was really just going to ride it out as long as it took?
Yeah. There was a sense of let's move it along. You know, it was a bit of a roller coaster, Jeremiah. I think for everyone, lot of emotion. Joe loves this club. Again, one thing I didn't mention before I forget it is we're going to honor Joe appropriately on September 15th at the Red Bull game. You know, make sure that he knows how much the fans and staff and players and coaches and everyone associated care about him. But yeah, I mean, there were times, you know, through any deal this big and complicated and lots of different people involved, there were ups and downs and emotions and you know, it was happening, it wasn't happening, it was happening, it wasn't, you know, and different entities trying to insert themselves. So it definitely wasn't a straight line, but ultimately Joe is the consummate gentleman, true to his word. He, you know, told me what his criteria was and stuck to it. But yeah, it took a little longer than we expected.
Yeah.
Mara Moat, Seattle Sports Commission, over here in the back. Hi. Adrian, you referenced a lot of the new ownership families have children. You referenced the club's efforts to drive sustainability, diversity, inclusiveness. Of all of those kind of line items, have you seen a collective decision to move forward with any of those in particular first? What's the collective first act we can anticipate from this new group?
You know, I think the answer is no. We have not, you know, we have not sort of coalesced around what this means going forward with this group. You know, we are full steam ahead with our, you know, overall vision, which continues to be create moments, enrich lives, and unify through soccer. And this team, all the staff here know that that's what we're about. But this executive committee, one-off conversations, getting to know each other will, you know, help evolve some of those priorities.
Felipe.
Adrian here. Felipe from El Rey 1360 AM. So there is other ownership groups in MLS like LAFC that has from Magic Johnson to Mia Hamm and a bunch of...
But they don't have anybody famous.
not really. But now you have Macklemore and Russell Wilson. How hard is gonna be to make decisions for the team, for the fans, and also if you are thinking to, or the ownership group is thinking to add more owners in the future?
So the answer to the first question, Felipe, is I think it will be, look, ultimately, again, as I mentioned before, I'm still the majority owner and can make the decisions, but I'm not, you know, Terry Meyerson has this term for me, you know, he called me the dictator, but I feel like I'm a benevolent dictator. And I want input. I want input from this new group. Quite frankly, I want input from the staff that work for us. I want input from the players. I want input from the fans. But ultimately, at some point, I, as the majority owner, need to make decisions that I think are best, you know, with all that feedback and move on. Otherwise, you know, you can be paralyzed through the analysis. But I'm excited to include that group in decision making. And my memory is so bad that the second part of the question. You know, Felipe, it's not impossible. You know, we may have another trick or two up our sleeve over the course of this summer. We have some exciting announcements still to roll out, so that's certainly possible.
Go back row there, yep.
Hello, Adrian. Chris Mossio, independent producer of French Dog Films. With this new ownership and the diversity in the ownership, do you think this could be a time when the Sounders offer a greater leadership in supporting the women's sport, specifically the rain?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. Obviously, my family has gotten involved recently with Rain FC. Massive supporters of what they're doing, and certainly it's something that we have discussed. Way too early to know how this ownership group might or might not engage, but I guess the direction is good in Tacoma. We're very excited about rain at Cheney Stadium, and we all have to do our parts. The media, fans, partners, owners. Everyone needs to step up and do their part to make sure that the game is supported and has the revenue necessary to continue to drive it.
Have time for a few follow-ups. Let's start with Matt there in the second row.
I've got a two-part question. First of all, why did Joe decide that this was the right time for him to move on? And then secondly, in the past, when you've described your relationship, you've talked about him as sort of the big Hollywood type who liked to make a big splash, and you kind of being the realist who would have to rein him in. Moving forward, how do you sort of maintain that ambition and that sort of desire to go above and beyond in the way that he did from time to time?
Yeah. So the first part I'm going to let him speak to. He'll be here September 15th, if not before, and if he wants to address that or not. I think I've learned well from Joe. I think that this new ownership group is equally ambitious, and we want to do big things and win trophies. And obviously there are a lot of different ways to get there, and this new group will find its way. But I'm confident that we're going to be winning trophies in the future.
Other follow-ups? I miss anybody? Yeah, Chris.
I'll throw a follow-up out there. Since there's more money now coming into the franchise, does this in any way impact any talk about upgrades at the training facility, or you just mentioned Tacoma in particular, the big press conference down there a few months ago about another soccer-specific stadium and how this franchise might use that with the Tacoma Defiance. So does this new money, that's a long way of saying, does this new money kind of impact those other couple of projects in any way?
Well, just to be clear, there is no new pot of money that Joe sold his equity to a group of new people. The new money comes in the form of continuing to run a better and better business, finding ways to creatively optimize and get the best team on the field. Doing training facilities sometimes generates more revenue. So we are currently going through a feasibility study on training facility. We want to make sure that if we invest for the next 20 or 30 or 50 years, we're in the right location. We love our Starfire location, but we are very close to sort of deploying some resources for the long haul, and we want to make sure we get that right. If we get it right, that will generate revenue. There are, I don't want to go too far, there are things bubbling between the public stadium authority, the stadium, us. There may be some things that we can do at CenturyLink Field over the course of time that can generate revenue. But we will work with our partners over at the Seahawks Stadium, Public Stadium Authority, and again, hope to evolve the business in a way that continues to add more and more resources to the kitty for Garth and Brian and the crew.
Just real quick on the infrastructure. You obviously have a lease at CenturyLink Field. You extended it recently, but it will come up relatively soon. What's your level of satisfaction at the stadium, and have you discussed any potential options going forward?
Yeah, our level of satisfaction is high. You know, is it perfect? No. Again, I hesitate to bring another team into the fold, but you know, I know LAFC just built a fantastic new stadium, and when USC plays next door, they have scheduling issues. So teams throughout our league have challenges with scheduling at times. We're no different. The thing that is changing, evolving, is the quality of the communication and the quality of the partnership with the Seahawks and the stadium. So we are super confident that a lot of any scheduling issues can be mitigated over the course of time. Obviously, with our schedule changing recently and the playoffs ending earlier, that frees up a bunch of dates for the Seahawks. So things around dates should improve. The location doesn't get much better. The flexibility in terms of scaling up, scaling down, the facilities, public transit. There are a whole lot of positives. Again, like all of us who play with synthetic turf, the dream scenario would be grass, and it's not impossible that at some point down the line there may be some way to solve for that. But to your point, we have a pretty long lease in place. And it's 5, 7, 10 years down the road before we will need to consider the possibility of other options or an extension and just a continuing partnership.
Anything else from you guys? No? Thank you all for being here again on such short notice. The backdrop's yours for television folks that want to use it for stand-ups. Otherwise, if you have any questions, please see our staff, Kelly, Brian, Riley, or myself, and we'll get more information out to you guys on August 19th soon enough here. Thank you again for being here. Anything from you, Adrian?
I think I'm good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.